Go ahead and start off with them and pan over.
Oh, so we're going to start here and then go clockwise?
We're going to start here and go this way.
Oh, okay.
Or do you want to end here? Because we can start here and go around.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so we need to start here because he's going to have to duck out once you swing around.
Okay, but you're going to start the talking.
I will start the talking,
Okay.
and then we're going to start with his story, and we're going to go around a circle
Okay.
beyond me.
All right, so give me 2 secs. Let me just focus up here really quick. I'm just only going to stay in this frame for the intro, and then when Joel starts talking, he's going to go small, and then you can get closer to him.
Yep.
I can hear you and hear someone like, yes? Yeah. Okay, let's go for it.
Okay, everybody, we're going to get started with our Sunday morning testimonials. Thank you for being here. We're all going to have 2-3 minutes to share our stories. I'd like you to share your first name only, city and state, where you're from, and what brought you here. And then if anything happened here, go ahead and share that. We're going to start off with a good friend of mine, Joel.
Hi, my name is Joel Kaminskis. I'm from Rainier, Washington. I met Dr. J in the end of 2016, and shortly thereafter became friends with him. And he was kind enough to invite me to his habituation site, Soya, at the end of 2017 in the summer. And I never really went squatching or bigfooting before, so it was my first time out with my wife and a couple of friends of ours. And every night I was a little tentative to go to sleep because he said he gave them permission to come up and check our bodies and scan us, which kind of freaked me out a little bit. So I managed to stay up every night without going to sleep and protect everyone. By the end of the third night, I'd gotten no sleep for 2 days. I finally nodded out, and I remember waking up at maybe 5:20 in the morning. I looked at my phone, and the light had just started to crack. And we had lots of activity. We heard vocals, we had tree pops, we saw all sorts of little lights and shimmering images. Dr. J told us how to see them, to look for the dim red eyes. And that morning when I looked at my phone, I put it back down, and I heard the loudest screech I'd ever heard in my life. It went something like, and I hope I don't blow out any sound here, it went something like, "Yee!" for about 3 or 4 seconds. And I lay in my cot frozen, and I said, I did not hear that. And then it did it again, that loud, "Yee!" And I went to sit up, and I heard 4 or 5 of the loudest footsteps I'd ever heard in my life. It sounded like a Clydesdale on 2 legs. Thump, 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 thump. And I could feel the vibration in my cot. And at that point, I had to get up. And when I did, Dr. J's cot was directly across from me, and he was sitting up looking, and he said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "No." He said, "There was an 8-footer on the road. He saw me, he turned around, and he ran up the hill." And that's the footsteps I heard. And it was absolutely amazing. So that was the morning we were going to leave. We drove back to Washington from Oregon. And my wife and I were sitting out over the summer in our backyard, and we decided to sit out since we just got back from Soya, and we did our first 3 days of squatching. And my wife was talking to the forest people and telling them, inviting them to every holiday and birthday party and the 4th of July and everything. And we saw shimmering images coming up, and it was the end of August, so the grass was really tall and dry, and we could hear several of them walking up on us from all different directions. And my wife started to get a little bit nervous, and she said, "Is that you guys?" And as soon as she said that, we had a woodshed about 75 feet from where we were sitting, and they started pounding on the woodshed. Ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. I remember sitting there going, this happens to somebody else. This doesn't happen in my backyard. So we didn't know what to do, so we just kind of sheepishly went into the house and called Matt and said, "Hey, they're pounding on our shed. What do we do?" And he said, Oh, well, they're just letting you know they're there. I said, yeah, but they're pounding at our shed and they're, we don't know what to do. Give us some help. Well, if they wanted you dead, you'd be dead. And if you went in the house and they wanted you dead, you'd still be dead. So go back outside and apologize. So I said, all right. So we go back outside. We turned on every light we had in the yard. And we apologized profusely for 20 minutes. And then we went back in the house. And that was my first weekend squatching.
And then they nicknamed him Woodshed.
Hey, real quick, you're recording, right? Okay, great. Would you mind, I'm a close-up now, would you mind
Sure.
doing the call again that you did
Sure.
before?
Do you want to just do the call?
No, just tell us a little intro to it, yeah.
Okay, so it was the third morning we were waking up, and I got a little
But
bit
to
of.
them, yeah.
No, you're looking
Oh,
over
yeah.
at them telling the story.
You want me to look
Not
here?
at me.
No,
yeah.
you're looking
Oh.
here telling the
Okay.
story,
Yeah.
and he's shooting you.
So we woke up, it was the third morning, and I hadn't gotten any sleep that night. I managed to get a few hours sleep, and I looked at my phone. It was 5:20 in the morning, and the light had just cracked. And I went to lay back in my cot, and I heard the loudest screech I had ever heard in my life. It went something like, "Yee!" And I laid in my cot, and I said, yeah, I didn't hear that. And then it did it again. It made that screech, that "Yee!" And I was a little nervous at that point, and right after it did the second screech, I heard footsteps like I'd never heard before. It sounded like a Clydesdale on two legs. Thump, 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 thump. And then I got up, and Matt was up, and he pointed to the road where he said he saw an 8-footer running up a hill. And that was that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
We're just gonna keep going around the circle. Okay, Brady, you're on.
Hi, I'm Brady. I'm from Grants Pass, Oregon. I'd say this was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I just got back from a 3-day camping trip up in Soya, and I was up for like 3 hours after I got home, and I went to my mom's and we sat on the bed, and she was just started to call my sister, and our room, and it's kind of like an oval shape, and but it's shaped like an oval, and there's like huge glass windows going like this in it, down to the river, and I looked down, I just turned my side, and you could see probably like this 8-foot, I forgot his name. What's his name? You just saw this
Loku.
this, you could see Loku walking down, going into the brush, and he wasn't cloaked at all, and you just see him like in the Sasquatch body, and that was probably the first experience I've seen him completely uncloaked. So that was
My name's Armani from Phoenix, Arizona, and my grandpa, he was into Bigfoot when I was little, and we watched Bigfoot shows all the time. And I think 2 years ago, he started talking about Matt and what he does, and invited me and my brother. And he told me to watch the video, he watched the videos, read his book. And at first, it's like, it hits you, and it's like crazy. So going up here, I was more excited than like knowing I might see him. That was really my second thought. My first thought was that it's gonna be fun. So the first night, we were sitting out there in the meadow, and one of their dogs went into the 30 o'clock trail. And so I just followed the dog. I would think maybe the dog saw something. So I went over there. It was pitch black. And just looking. And then on the right, I started seeing lights. Little bitty lights, barely. And at first I thought it was just my eyes kind of when it's really dark. And so I kept looking, and they were still there. They wouldn't it would like disappear once in a while, but they would still be in the exact same spot. And then my brother came, and then they, on the back, they just started coming in a trail, and there was a lot of them. And then I told my grandpa to come, and they were still there, and then everybody started going around and started singing. And then my brother and me, we started sitting down and put our hands out, and we asked them to come and see if they could touch it. And like the tips of my finger would start like a weird, weird sensation, like kind of like a poke. And I was like, whoa, like this is crazy. I wouldn't actually think it would happen on the first night, maybe like the second. And then after like about 30 minutes, we went back and we sat down, and I went to go later, and they're all gone. Nothing was there. And then the next night, nothing was there. So I knew it was there. And it was just in my mind. And yeah, that's when I knew, like, okay, this is weird. Cool.
Hold on just a second. There you go, nice, clear, everything's good. Okay. You look great. I'm ready.
Hi, I'm Dave Cameron. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. And I've had quite a few experiences here at Xanue. It all started for me just growing up being curious about Bigfoot, whether it was real big or not. And the more I looked into it, the more I heard of all these experiences from what seemed to be credible people. You got state troopers, you got airline pilots, all these credible people. Experiences. It's like, I'm almost sure something has to be going on here. But jumping ahead, I ran across Dr. Matt on different TV channels regarding Bigfoot. And then I saw him on YouTube, so I started really looking into what he does and what he did. And got really, really intrigued. And then he opened up the Camp Xanue's here to others who wanted to experience some of this stuff. On my first trip up here, I brought my two grandsons. Had some incredible experiences. Armani he kind of toned down the story a little bit, but he saw those light orbs. He didn't just say, "Grandpa, come over and look." No, he came running over. "Grandpa, they're here." He was really, really excited. But it was quite an event. Last night, I probably experienced the most extreme stuff to me I'd seen yet. I really got a good visual of the cloak images. I had my second walk over to the 3 o'clock trail by myself. I was looking up the trail, which has glowstones, which kind of outline the trail. I'm looking up the trail, it goes up about 30, 40 yards. And as I'm looking at the trail becomes dark and fuzzy. And so my eyes, so I blink and try to flare up my vision, but it's still dark and fuzzy where the glow lights are. And I readjust my vision and realize there's something right in front of me that's causing that, because it slowly moves to my left and clears my vision. And then I see it to the left of me, and it's pretty big. I can't quite see a sharp outline, but I can tell it's there, and then I see another one over to the right of it. And as I put my hand out, here also, they were super close because my hand was disappearing off and on as I put my hand out, asking to touch me. And it was just, you get a tingling sensation, and there was a blackness washing over my hand as my hand was stretched out. It was really, really super cool. It was super cool. I had some other experiences, but that was what I've been wanting to see all along, for them to be right there. Also, real quick, me and Armani went to the woodpile after that, and they began appearing right across the woodpile. Well, we didn't see them initially, but we stretched out our hands, they disappeared. Our hands disappeared right over the woodpile, and washing black over this. Armani stuck his hand out, got the same thing. And then you can kind of readjust your vision and see them right 2 feet correct. Amazing, amazing. That's the kind of experience, what I've been wanting to see. I wasn't sure why I wasn't seeing it, but I saw it. It was awesome.
Awesome. Thank you. Ruth.
I'm Ruth, from Phoenix, Arizona. My husband, like said, has always been in Bigfoot. I always thought it was crazy. I didn't want to hear it, didn't want to have nothing to do with it. I had 3 strokes. The third one was pretty bad. I had to learn how to walk. I was in rehab. I'm sorry, I get emotional. I was in rehab for a month. And I got angry because I couldn't do the things that I was used to doing. And my family, I felt like they were pushing me aside because they knew I couldn't do things, and they weren't inviting me to go hiking and do stuff like they used to. And that hurt my feelings, and so I got more bitter, I got more angry, and so when my husband went the first time, when he came back, he told me, Ruth, I asked for healing, and I'm like, no, he wanted me to go. I prayed for you and I asked Xanue to heal you. And I'm like, no, I'm not going. And so I didn't believe him. I didn't believe nothing he said about Xanue. So then my grandson told me about it. And I did believe my grandson. My grandsons will never lie to me. Not that he lies to me, but I just think sometimes he says things just to make me happy. And so I believe my grandsons, that what they said. So when my husband invited me, I'm like, okay, I'll go. I went, and when we got here, I was looking for my braces, and my leg braces, and I couldn't find them. And he goes, oh, Ruth, I forgot to pack them. And so I was just so angry, and then when I got here, I saw the terrain, and it's like, why did I come? I can't walk in this terrain. There's no way. With all these rocks and everything, I can't. And so when I got here, I didn't want to have nothing to do with anybody. Just leave me alone. Let me be in this corner. I didn't want to make friends with anybody. I was just so angry. I just don't want to have anything to do with anybody. Just leave me alone. Let me just die here. So, anyways, Matt spoke the next morning, and I listened, and I felt the presence of God. And I was just so open. And after he finished, I went outside, and while he was talking, I was praying as well. And when we went outside, I felt, I let go. I told God, you know what? I don't want this anger. I let go. I let everything go. And so, my husband was coming up, and he was going to come and help me, to assist me. And I'm like, no. I don't need your help. I can do this. And I walked without the brace. I took them off, and I was walking down the hill. I'm like, wow, I can do this. So I came back, and I saw Cynthia, and I told her, here, I don't need these anymore. I gave her back her braces because she had lent them to me. Because she told me I have some to, because I was so upset because I didn't have any. She goes, I have some for you. So anyways, I gave them back to her. I go, I don't need these anymore. And so I go, Cynthia, I want to show you something. I went up and down it was steep. I'm sorry. I get so excited when I talk. I was running up and down. I was jumping. I was just so happy. I was just so full of joy. And when I came back to Phoenix, I was just so ecstatic. I was just happy. And so when he asked me to come again, I'm like, yes, I'll come again. So I came, and I'm glad I'm here. And when we went this time, I never saw the Xanue, but we went to the 3 o'clock trail, and I was standing there, and I felt a lot of energy. And I looked, I saw something on my left side, and I saw 2 of them, one next to David and one by Anissa. And the one that said it was by Anissa was just like staring at Anissa, just staring. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the Xanue was just so intense on her, just staring at her. And I'm like, oh my God. And everybody's telling me, what do you see? What do you say? You don't see it? It's right there. They're right there. You don't see them. Finally, they saw them. And then when we went to the log? The wood pile. Me and Lisa went. And I was sticking out my hands. And we both had our hands out. Her hands were white. Super white. I go, baby, your hands are white. And she goes, I don't see it. I go, baby, look at your hands, they're white. And she goes, Grandma, I don't see it. And I put my hand between her hands, and I go, baby, look at my hand. What color is my hand? She was brown. I go, okay, my hands are brown. Your hands are white, look at that. So finally, she saw, I see it, Grandma, I see it. My hands are white, she saw it. And she had little, twinkles going down her hands, and it was just fantastic. And I'm so glad she got to experience that. That's it.
Can you show me your hands again when you were demonstrating what's happening?
When we were at the woodpile, we had our hands out, and our hands were white. I mean, they were just white. I go, no, baby, look at your hands, they're white. And she would go, Grandma, I don't see it. I go, little baby, look at your hands, they're white. And she couldn't see it. I go, let me put my hand. I put my hand in the middle of her two hands. I go, what color is my hand? She was brown. I go, well, honey, my hands are brown and yours are white. And then finally she said, I see it, Grandma, I see it. And, she was all excited.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Anissa, and I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. And how I got into this stuff was my grandpa. He was into Bigfoot. He watched Bigfoot shows like my brother did, my grandpa. And he talked about that a lot. And got into that stuff as well. And then I finally got with them. And Friday night, we went to the woodpile with my grandpa. And me and my grandpa were asking us, can you show yourself, or can we hear something? It can be a wood, it could be anything, footsteps or anything. And then I heard footsteps, little ones, it was from a kid, or it can be from an adult, but it was a little one. And I heard about 15 footsteps coming closer and closer. And then I saw little sparkles. It was just amazing. I'll never forget that. That's my experience.
John, Anissa.
Hi, my name is Mary.
Don't look at me though. Sorry.
My name is Mary and I'm from San Francisco. And I had every reason not to come here, and all the resistance was showing up. I have been in contact with Uta, who lives up in this area, and she invited me to this event. And I'd never heard of it before, never. But I will say, from the minute I heard everything that I did want to do, I came anyway. The miracles kept showing up along the way, and here I am. So what I will say is, when I first came up, I thought I won't be able to handle this. I can't sleep in the outdoors, and I was scared out of my mind. And it's just been transforming in that, and I can't explain it. But there have been numerous things happen to me, at the rocks, and getting hugs, and feeling that something has touched my head. I haven't seen any, but I certainly have felt experiences. And as I'm speaking to you right now, I'm feeling energy. I feel energy a lot. So. I am a retired RN, and throughout my career I felt energies, and I certainly, that's how they've contacted me. And I noticed that I've seen, last night in the trees, there was a lot of blue light coming in, and I slept all night through. That's a miracle. And when I woke up, a lot of my aches and pains had gone, and I somehow woke up a little bit last night, and I saw, I don't know if this was a dream or not, but I saw seven white lights saying, you are getting a healing. So my experience has been totally turned around. Wow, I can't explain it, but it's magic.
So I'm going to say this: when we were falling asleep, and I was laying on my left side, and I was looking in your direction, the cots in your direction, I saw 3 of them standing on the far side of your cot, waiting for you to fall asleep to work on you. 3 of them are standing there. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Dr. J, would you mind saying that again?
Sure.
Once I get framed up.
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
So when we were falling asleep, we were all in our cots, and I was laying on my left side, and I was looking in your direction, and there were several cots between my cot and your cot. I saw 3 Xanue standing on the far side of your cot, waiting for you to fall asleep so they could start working on you. And I was like, yes, this is cool. So that what I saw matches with what you just said. They were there. They were working on you last night. That's cool.
My name is Ron. I'm from Yelm, Washington. I was in my youth, an amateur astronomer, so I always liked to look up the stars. And one evening I went down to my garden, and actually it was in the early morning hours, because the sky was clear. It's the only place where I could see the stars. And I was looking up at the stars, all of a sudden I hear, I pull back my hand and I look down, and there's a little Xanue face staring up at me. And then it turned and it crawled back into the forest. And I was telling a friend about this experience, and she said to me, have you heard of Dr. Johnson? And I said, no. She said, well, he has a Bigfoot camp in jails. So I said, oh. And then the opportunity came for me to come here. So I came here. And the first night that I spent here, I had an experience. It was a rainy night, so we didn't do any night sits. And so I went by the garage with the overhang, and I just sat on there by myself. And I heard in the bushes behind me this strange sound. And then it would stop. And that's kind of strange. I wonder what kind of animal that is, because I never heard a sound like that before. And I sat there for a bit, and I said, okay, I guess I better go in, it's getting late. As soon as I went to get up, again, so I said, okay, I'll stay for a little bit longer. And then all of a sudden something bumped that thing, it almost like threw me over, bumped the side of the bench, and nothing else happened. So I stayed for a little while, and then I went to get up again, and then, but it went off into a distance. I didn't hear it anymore. The next morning, I slept upstairs, and I was sleeping on my mat on the floor next to the window, my head next to the window, and I was woken up by this tapping sound on the window. And I looked up, and there was this bird flapping, tapping on the window. And I'm looking at it, and then I get in my head this voice saying, we want stories, we want stories, we want stories. And I'm weird, how did they know that I write children's stories? So I thought, okay, so I came down, and Matt told me that the little guy was Bowtree, who's known here as a trickster, and he's always playing tricks on me when I come here. But and Cantu was the one that had bumped the side of my seat that I was on. That night we did a night sit, and I was sitting, Matt was next to me, and all of a sudden I became aware of this like silhouette, because it's very dark outside, as you're well aware, and I could see this silhouette of a 10-foot being standing about 12 feet from me. And so I, you know, again, not knowing whether my eyes were playing tricks on me, I said, man, is there a 10-foot being standing in front of me? And he kind of chuckled, yeah, that's Cantu. He said the decline on my property here. Oh, okay. And I sat there for a bit, and I noticed that for 20 minutes, he's just standing there staring at me. And so again, I said, why is he just standing there staring at me? And he was explaining that, well, he's looking at your magnetic field, the aura around you, and he's checking you out, seeing who you are, what you are, you know, what's in your heart, where is your love, and all of these things. So I said, okay, all right. Then the evening progressed with nothing else, well, a few sparkles here and there, and it was time because I had promised him I would tell him the story, so I told Matt, I'm gonna go into the forest now, I'm gonna tell the little ones the story. And Matt said, well, why don't you stay here? We'd like to hear the story too. I said, all right. So I said, all right, come on close, come on, I'm gonna tell you a story. And at the end of the trail, I saw this black mass coming down, like a carpet, coming down the trail. And I don't like it. I said, Matt, I think they're coming. And Matt said, yep. And they came down and they stopped right at the edge of the woodshed. And I said, they stopped. And Matt said, yep. I said, they're by the woodshed. Yep. So I said, come on closer, come on closer. And they moved up close right to where Cantu was standing and wouldn't come any closer. So I told the story. After I finished the story, I watched that whole mass. I couldn't see the individuals. However, I could feel there was about 25 to 30 of them in that massive darkness that was falling, that was on the ground. And then they all receded back up the trail. And since then, I've had a lot of experiences with bow tree, pulling off my tarp off my cot. Actually, my wife was sitting at the kitchen, or standing at the kitchen window, and she actually saw nobody down by the fire pit, but my tarp just being pulled right off of my cot and go on the floor. Or he would go into my suitcase underneath and pull out clothes and just place them on the grass very neatly. Little tricks like that. Or another time, I had this kind of jumper sweater, and I put it on the cot, so when we go to the night sit, I would grab it and then go up. Well, I went down there and it wasn't on my cot. However, when I got back after the night sit, it was on my cot. So little things like that Bow Tree does, the little tricks like that, make things disappear and reappear. And it's not done harmfully, it's just done in jest. And so that's basically it. And last night, what I did experience was I could see when Matt was standing in front of the woodpile, and people around me too were starting to see the silhouette, being that it's dark again, a silhouette of this being that's about 3 to 4 feet taller than Matt, standing there. You could see the whiteness of his face, the lightness of his face. And he was just standing there talking with, I guess, engaging with Dr. Johnson. Then also I did see very subtle flashes at one point during the night, and I think other people had seen that as well. And that's about it, except for the fact that usually I get up to do my business once in the night, and last night I slept right through. I was gone till 5:30 in the morning. And that's about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron.
Hi, my name is Brian. I'm from Monterey, Washington. As a child, I was always reading books about the forest Sasquatch, and so I've always been interested in them. And then last year, a couple years ago probably, I came across one of the YouTube videos from Dr. J, and I just watched them all. I just found it so interesting, and then I got his book and I read his first book, and I had my own experience in Carbonado where I actually saw a physical forest person very, very briefly take 3 big steps through the forest. Sound disappeared. The being was about 10 feet tall. I remember the color of his hair was very light brown, and then went dark. Took 3 massive steps and just completely disappeared. The sound disappeared, the forest went back to quiet. And I just felt completely blessed because to me it felt like they trusted me enough to make an appearance. And so last year was my first trip up here to Camp Xanue, and I had a wonderful time. And last night, pretty much the same. For the first time, I actually saw the silhouettes of the beings, and they were very close to me on the trail. As I looked around, I was able to see the silhouettes of them move, and it was the first time I had seen that. When I was hugging Cantu, I just got tingles all over my body, like massive tingles all over my body, and I just felt this wave of love. That we love you, you're a kind soul, and it was just this acceptance that you don't normally feel. I just brought tears to my eyes, and I always try to hide my emotions like that because being a man and stuff. But it really made me cry. It was very emotional, and I just let it all out, and I walked back, and just amazing. And then when I went down by the wood pile, I was able to see some red eyes. They'll come and go. If you try to look at them, they kind of disappear. So I kept my gaze forward, and I was seeing red eyes here, red eyes there, glowing, a little bit of glowing in the trees. And so I held out my hands and I said, I would, you know, if you would like to touch me, that would be great. So I got an electrical zap. My hands felt like, just like a current all of a sudden went through. It was very, very brief, but it was quick. And so I thanked them for that. And then when I went to bed, I was out, like everyone's saying. I was like solidly asleep for like 5-6 hours. Didn't wake up at all. So it was a wonderful experience, and I'm really looking forward to this time as well.
Yeah, of course.
I just also wanted to mention that I was out telling a story one afternoon with about two other couples, and all of a sudden, well, the night before, I was doing the parking crew, and I saw Dave helping Ruth walk out of the car, get out of the car, walk in. She had really trouble walking. But the next day, when I was out there telling a story to the little ones, Ruth came running up that steep hill and stopped. I said, wait a minute, aren't you the one that had the heart attack? And she said, yes, look, I'm healed. And she started jumping up and down. It was such a really joy to see that. It was really nice. That's it.
Hi, I'm Sharon Gentry from Oregon, Washington. I experienced a lot of real wonderful experiences. My son has brought me to Dr. J and his books. And I've seen a lot here. I've seen tall, dark, coming from my right side, in front of me, down to the woods. And I said hi in my mind. So I have experienced a lot of lights, eyes, glows, short, tall. The part of my story I want to share the most is that I was reading the second book that Brian gave me up in the mountains. I had my chair up against an old tree, and I was reading the book, and all of a sudden I could feel warmth around me, so I looked up and I said, if you're here, can I have a message? And started reading again. Well, off to my left, on the other side of the river, I hear this soft knock. I said, oh, thank you. I read a little bit more, and then off to the right, I heard another soft knock. And I started crying. It has really lifted me up. I now understand more of the Bible and what Jesus wants for us. Anyway, thank you. I'm so glad to meet everybody too. Thank you for your love.
Thank you, Sharon.
Hi, my name is Marilyn. I'm from Ware, Massachusetts. And my first time here, we were invited to go and get hugged by Saria and Kantu. So I went up there and Saria was there and I felt her energy. And her energy would kind of fluctuate back and forth. And I didn't want to leave, I just wanted to hug her for the rest of the night. Y'all can do what you want. I just wanted to hug her. And I ended up going back to my seat. And I could feel, like my feet were on the ground and I could feel buzzing in the earth. Just, my feet were just buzzing. And the next morning when I woke up, there was a little X right by the head of my cot. So I know they had been there. And I showed it to, I took a picture of it and showed it to Cynthia. And she explained it a little bit. I knew the X stood for Xanue, but I didn't know it had other meanings, so she explained some of it to me, which I was grateful for. It wasn't the first time, though, that I've interacted with the Xanue. I just didn't know they were the Xanue. In 2017, I was bored during the autumn. I went on the internet, found all these videos about Bigfoot. I thought Bigfoot was just a myth. But I was bored. I watched all these movies. I terrified myself. I was so happy and thankful they did not live in New England. Oh my word. And then one day I'm coming down the stairs, and it's the end of winter. I look out in the side pasture, and that beautiful bunch of trees was a glyph. It was a territory marker, and it hit. And I just stood there and I panicked. I stood there with so much fear in me. It wasn't funny. And I cried. I prayed. I slept with my clothes on. I was ready to run out of the house at any given moment. What was I going to do? I mean, run out of the house, really? You know? And I remember standing in my living room looking at the walls around me thinking, you know, as big as they are, they can just come through this house anytime they want. I was terrified. And then somebody talked to me and said if they wanted to kill you, they would have done it by now. And I came to the realization I couldn't move. That I wanted to move, but I couldn't move. I was living paycheck to paycheck. I had no savings, nothing. So my spiritual training came to help me. It was like, all right, you can't move, so what's the next step? Show them you're friendly. You don't want them coming through the wall of the house. So the only thing I could think of is like, wave hi. And I remember first I had to go to work. So, and I had to get from the house to the car. My house was, we're on a mountain, well, I'm on a mountain. The house is surrounded on 4 sides by woods. There's a country road going down. I have to get from the house over to the car. All of a sudden this became a problem. And I opened the first time I opened the door and I just stuck my hand out. I went, hi, hi, hi. You know, and then I opened the door more and I stood there and I was terrified. And I still waved, and then I ran for the car. Got in the car, locked the doors. Oh, I was scared. And I had to come back in the dark because I was off work. And I did the same thing. I come up and I park. My heart's going like this. And I got to get out of the car. I got groceries. And I get out of the car, and there were 3 watchers. That's what they said on the internet. I called them watchers like they did. There was one right across the street, right at the tree line. And I hear a thump. And I say, okay, I'm just getting my stuff. Once I get in the house, y'all can have the yard. And I get my stuff, run to the house. Get my stuff, run to the house. And I go to the house, and I turn around. Okay, I'm done. Bye, bye, bye. Close the door. And I learned they're very compassionate. And they knew me better than I know myself. I had a cat. I'm going to cry. Forget it. I had a cat that I dearly loved. His name was Smokey. And he ended up dying suddenly. And I came down the stairs and he was in the process of dying. So I stood there and let him know that I was safe. And I cried all day long and I kept going around the house saying, Smokey died. I can't believe Smokey died. I went out the next day, I had wrapped his body up and I carried the container out. And as I went to the car, I thought maybe the watcher behind whatever, wherever he is, I knew he was close to the road. Maybe he'd like to know why I had been carrying on. Because I was still operating on the principle that these are human-like animals or cavemen or something. I wasn't sure about the level of intelligence, and I'm sure they already had my intelligence in question. So I picked up the container, I unwrapped from the waist up Smokey so they could see him, and I held him up and I said, this is Smokey. He died. Smokey died. And I put him down and I leaned on the car and I just cried. And I got myself together better than I'm doing at the moment. And I got in the car. There were no tree, they would always do tree knocks. There were 3 of them, one at the car, one at the end of the swamp, and one halfway up the mountain, the rest of the mountain. And I didn't get any tree knocks that day. I took his body to the vet. did what had to be done. And I came back, and no tree knocks. The next day I went to work. I was very subdued. Bye, I gotta go to work. And I came back that night. Where I parked, it was a very sandy area. Somebody must have prepared it years ago. And I would always park in a certain spot. There were no rocks around, little tiny pebbles, that's it, and sand. I came up the road, and as I'm getting ready to turn in, I had to stop because there was a rock right in where I parked. And it's like, where did that come from? It was a black rock. So I pulled in around it, and I went and picked it up and looked at it. It was about like this big, and it was like in the shape of a shoe or a boot or something. And I picked it up and I realized they were giving me a message. Smokey wasn't dead, he was just walking on his path, going further. And I just held it, I hugged it, like this to let them know I really appreciated it. Took it inside, washed it, put it right with my plants, and that was like 3 years ago. I still have the rock. I learned they are people, and God knows they're better people than I am. And when I had to move, I went down the street. They had a big X across from the house. I thought the X had been made by the Boy Scouts. It wasn't. And I remember I went down the street just a little bit to get to the X, and I didn't walk onto their territory because I felt like that was an invasion of their home. And I've been telling them, I don't do this in your home, don't do it in mine. So I felt like I needed to reciprocate. And I went down there, and I knew they were interdimensional at that point. I'd had some experiences. Too long in 2 to 5 minutes to go in. But I stood at the side of the road, and I started whispering about I have to move. When I would whisper, everything was silent. When I would stop and think of what else to say, I would hear foot crunching behind some bushes. I couldn't see anybody there, but I could hear the crunching. And at first I thought deer, but I never knew deer would do all that. And when I would speak, the crunching would stop. And then I'd speak again. And we just went back and forth for like 15, maybe 20 minutes. And I knew there was a watcher there watching me, and he was listening. He could hear me whisper. And I went home. I told him bye. I went home. And then I moved. And even when I moved to the next town, the parking lot was kind of countrified. And there were times when I remember one time the wind was blowing and there was this skunky kind of scent, but it was just right there in front of me, and it wasn't going anywhere. It was just there. And sometimes I would see glyphs, and when I had to move again, towards the last few weeks of moving, there were quite a few glyphs that were showing up, especially a Y. So where I am now, I've asked, I've asked about, are you here? Because I don't want to move to that place if you're not going to be there. And I did like the apartment, I really wanted to move there. But they were there, and they showed me X's. But the X's weren't what I thought it should be. I wanted to see an X, big like what we had in the other town. Bigger than me. They were showing me small X's. And it's like, oh yeah, all right, it could be an X, but what's the big one? And I never did get a big one there. But they did start teaching me. They started showing me that some of the trees that were really close together, they had pushed one tree one way, pushed it another way, and it was growing up into an X. And it was like, we're not in the country now. We're in a town, bordering on a small city, and we don't want people seeing these things and realizing what they are. So we're signaling to our people, these X's are not for your people. And it's just been wonderful. I love them, absolutely love them. They are the best kinds of neighbors you could ever have in your life. When I lived in the other town, when I first knew about them, I didn't worry about coyotes and bears anymore, Cause I could hear, I'd get out of the car, they'd be a wood knock there, wood knock there, wood knock there. We're covered. I didn't have to worry about it. And I would go back in a heartbeat and live on a mountain with the Xanue and have no other neighbors. It would be great. I'm done.
Thank you. It was awesome. Okay, hold on just a second. Let me get a better spot.
Just don't look
Doing great.
So we're not looking
Yeah, tell me when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, my name's Dick. I live in Tacoma, Washington. I first, my path that led me here started because I listened to the Coast to Coast radio program every night, leave my radio on all night. And one day I heard about a paranormal conference in Ocean Shores at the Quinault Casino. So I started, it's in March, I started going to that every year. And then at one of these conferences, they said they have a Sasquatch conference in November. So I thought, well, sounds like it might be interesting. I didn't really, at that point, believe Sasquatches existed. And so I went to the conference and I started hearing all these speakers that had testimonials of all kinds of encounters with the Sasquatch or the Bigfoot, the Xanue, they're called here. And one of the speakers was Matt Johnson, and I bought his book and he autographed it for me. And I didn't read it for many years for some reason, and then finally I pulled it down and read it, and then found out he had another book coming out that I was able to order, and I got that one and read that also, and then made reference to some videos, and I watched all the videos, and I became convinced that Matt is at the forefront of the Bigfoot research. He's established a closer relationship with them. They call themselves the Xanue than anybody else. So I was very pleased when he invited me to come to this gathering, and I enjoyed my time here. I did notice the apparition of Zorth when we were all together last night. I slept very well last night, and when I arrived, name's Ron, I only call you Don. Ron took me on a nice tour around the area, and then Matt came, and I hadn't slept in a cot since I was a kid, so I had to take it out of the box, and he helped me set it up and helped me find a suitable place for it. And I slept very well last night as a result of all the help that I had. I've enjoyed the company of all the people here, and I'm very appreciative for Matt and Cynthia making this opportunity available for everybody.
Thank you, Dick.
I'm Tony from Bellingham, Washington, and I've been going to primitive skills gatherings and medicinal and edible plant walks since the early 90s. I've taken tracking classes from the top people in the field of animal tracking in New Jersey and Idaho and Montana. And so I'm very familiar with what looks natural in the woods and forest and so forth. And primitive skills gatherings in Idaho and British Columbia and Washington. They're pretty interesting, but Bigfoot never really came up in all these, week-long and long weekend gatherings there. And I've been listening to Coast to Coast for many years, mostly interested in the near-death experience and angels, and then Bigfoot authors. I started hearing their stories. But something was missing from all the normal stories of Bigfoot, and then I heard a mention of Matthew Johnson on one of the shows. And I'll look into this one. I found his YouTube channel and was watching those, and then his book came out, and then I thought, I'll order the book. And that sounded an interesting story. I mean, there's something here to this story. So I came, May of 18 was the first spring cleanup here, so I came to that. We're gonna sleep on cots in the woods, and okay, sounds interesting. Be different not to have a tent, but okay. So my first time sleeping in the cot on the 3 o'clock trail was just very short. It wasn't cut out like it is now. So I was trying to fall asleep, and with my eyes closed, there were suddenly 3 picture frame kind of slideshows appearing. One had a small light airplane flying, and then I don't remember the other 2 anymore. I should have written it down. So. It's good to keep a journal. So. But anyway, that's never happened before, that kind of slideshow in my eyes closed vision. And besides that, on the night sit and the trails, I see the little red sparkling lights here and there, and shimmering images behind the wood pile, and can feel the energy when standing in front of Surya and Kantu at the night sit that we do. So since starting, I think it's 12 or 13 times I've been here to the Camp Xanue night sits and spring cleanups. And they're definitely well worth attending, definitely. And after my first night sit, in my backyard at home, my backyard is on the Lummi Reservation adjacent to a boatyard where they have bright lights on all night. So my backyard is brighter than it would otherwise be. And so I would try night sit, sleeping on the cot out there. And my neighbor has on her far property line 100-foot tall cedars. And I was looking over that way from my cot, and suddenly there was a bright orb, white orb, about the size of a moon, below the tree line, close to those cedars, so less than 100 feet away, and it just hovered there for a few seconds and then moved away and then shot off up into the sky and was gone. That was my first time seeing a definite, unmistakable white orb like that. And then one of the other night sits, we were up in the rec room upstairs. At night, Julie and Sharon were there, and one of them was saying, "How do I get my flash on to video?" And here, just turn the flash on. And then she had her video going with the flash on, and there were orbs flying around in the rec room. Wow, that's cool. I'm going to try that later at home at night in my house. I would turn on the video with the flash, and there would be orbs flying around in my house. White orbs, different sizes, some fast, some slow. So you know it's not dust off of the, reflecting back from the light, because they're round orbs, different sizes and different directions. And what was the other thing? Oh yeah, August 19, a few of us were on the trail down where, right above where it gets steep down to the wetlands. Ron was telling stories to the little Xanue there. And a couple of us were there listening, just watching and listening. And then Ruth and Dave were coming up the trail, and Ruth was excited with tears of joy and just fast walking up the hill, just overcome with joy. I saw tears of joy. She explained something about healing, and I had met her briefly earlier in the day before that, and she was walking in braces. So it's just definitely an experience to come to Camp Xanue anytime. So highly recommend it. That's it.
Hi, my name is Charlene from Birmingham. Tony brought me here, but way back home, I heard from my parents, especially my mom, that's also a believer. And when Tony introduced me and asked me to read the book, because he said, oh, you have to come with me, I said, okay, interesting, and we're gonna sit on the 3 o'clock with a cot. And then the first night that I'm here, that was, I heard from everybody that said they're seeing something like this. And then for me, when my first night in the wood file, I saw immediately that those like a shadow that's with the little kids while we are here, and Tony asking please let me see you. For me, I automatically saw them, but except with the shadow. And when we are sitting there by the wood file too, we gave a hug with the Kantu and the Siri. Is it like I feel the energy that my body and my shoulder become warm. That's experience that I never forget. Besides, Tony also showed me the orbs when you how to make it for your phone, the flash or that's kind of like that. And then from then, I'm excited to come here and beside with my and like extension of your family. That I'm always like you're always welcome and meet other people from different kind of United States. And I'm happy to be here and take this opportunity for Matt and Cynthia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlotte. Thank you. Hold on just a second.
Sure.
Ready in the hot seat. Go for it.
Hello, my name is Ute. I'm originally from Germany, and I live in Yale, Washington, which is 1.5 hours away. Last year, I had encounters with the community, and they were saying, we went to this camp where you sleep kind of steep and you have to adjust your cot. And I'm like, whoa, that sounds great. I'm an outdoors person. Barefoot is the way I like to be, and I live in the forest. I thrive there, and I really feel at home there. So I'm like, I was self-called, read the book. I'm like, last year wasn't my time yet. It was this year, coming from the spring cleanup. And what an experience to be welcomed by this clan here that is all the same. Like, we have this in common of but I feel is, yes, I feel. Feel welcome, and it's an immediate welcome. It's so loving. It's like, it blows my mind. It blew my mind, it so does it. And yesterday was when you were saying, you explained your cry, you haven't been in tears. With all these testimonies right now, I just had to water here. It was like, I'm so touched by what is happening. Yeah. So what's happening for me, coming from the spring cleanup, first time sleeping outside, actually, hugging Suraya, I came back down from, I came back down from hugging her, and my toes were touching with mud, but I wouldn't feel my body yet. I'm like, oh, coming down, sitting back down, and Ron says, oh yeah, Ron actually was the one that's inviting me to the spring cleanup. Thank you, Ron, for that opportunity. I'm like, do you know what happened? I was like, no clue. She said, you disappeared. I'm like, okay, that explains the toes. Okay, great. And then a little bit later, I went to the wood pile. I put my hands on the wood pile. I don't have any hands anymore. There were no hands. I was like, okay, wait. Asking for healing and being a bit excited. I'm like, I don't know if I can be with you. I don't know you at all. It's Sasquatches or Xanue. Very common in Germany. We never talked about those. I came to Sasquatch, Washington, that was one thing. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I feel at home in the woods, so it's nothing that scares me really, no. And so yeah, okay, great. So the wood pile, going, and then I remember turning back around, going back to the seat, and then I don't remember. Then I remember sitting back down pretty much, and then Matt comes and says, you know what happened, Ute? I'm like, no, I don't. And he says, you know, we didn't see you coming up. Once Zors stopped his walk, you walked out of it and went to your seat. I'm like, whoa. There's something to this. Yeah, so the first time I was here in May, I didn't see much, like maybe some little blue spots, like the little guys the little guys. The little people in the bushes blinking, and this time I actually see contours, like the outline and blue sparks, and you know, I don't see any red eyes yet. I don't see red. I mostly see blue. And my first time, another little blip here, is when I first slept here in May. I was waking up in the middle of the night and looked towards the house. There was a green light up in the trees. I'm like, okay, weird. And so I came right back to sleep and asked Matt in the morning. I asked Matt, what was that green light in the tree? And he said, that was Xanue saying, we're here, and we're the guardians of the forest. And I was like, I felt so seen since I'm working with people in Uganda, creating food forests in Uganda, right? So it's like, I mean, my love for the forest is definitely being reciprocated upward. Okay, wait. Yeah, I think that's my story. Thank you so much for opening your home and having different clan, different family here for us. So thanks so much, man.
Thank you. Can I add just one quick thing I was leading up to and then I forgot?
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, when walking the trails down here, the different trails on the property, there are many structures that the Xanue built, and yesterday morning I found this one.
You hold it still.
Is the most elaborate one I've seen yet, and it's
just hold it for a regularly long amount of time. Okay.
The scale of it is, it's probably about 8 to 10 feet wide here and 3 to 4 feet tall. But it's built by the little Xanue, you know, practicing making the structures. So the adults make the big X's, and the children are practicing on these small ones. But this one is very elaborate and just interesting to look at. So keep an eye out on the trail when you look for this one. It's down on the out the 3 o'clock trail and down the Infinity Loop, the left fork, I think. A really cool one that's new. I haven't seen it previously.
It's on the Infinity Loops trail?
Yeah,
toward the bottom?
The left fork.
On the trail going down to the bottom of the hill?
Just past the left fork.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Can I just make a comment about
Sure.
Judah? I have no idea why I got here, and after listening to her, now I know why I got here. And she has such great love for the forest. I mean, she runs around day and night, bare feet and everything. I've never seen anybody embracing. I mean, I'm not an outdoorsy person, and it's like meeting an alien as far as I'm concerned. I was astounded because the kind of resistance I had, it's hard to, you know, when you get into being of one mind, it's hard to that to break. But after hearing Uda, I do get why I'm here. Her amazing love for the outdoors. And
it is actually coming to another planet as far as I'm concerned. I live in the hub of the city. And so I was a little bit intimidated by it all, like going to another planet really. And that was my experience. So thank you, Udo, I appreciate that. And I just want to make one comment about Ruth. She told me a story yesterday, and she gave me, she's kind of give you a hug, and she did. And I felt this huge warmth coming through her hand. And I said, oh my goodness, I said, that was really hot. She said, I don't experience any heat in my hand. I don't have any heat in my hand. I said, well, I don't know where it's coming from, but you certainly had heat in your hand. And that, my experience, I do know that healers have heat in their hand. So I said, whether you like it or not, you're a healer. That's what I said. I just wanted to, we were making comments about Ruth, and I thought that, because she had a very profound experience, that was my experience of her yesterday. So the healings were all over the place, coming from everywhere.
Cool. Thank you, Mary. Sorry. I'm gonna kind of wrap things up.
Let me reframe it for a second.
Okay. Just a little closer.
Good call.
There we go.
Sorry, I don't mean to stand in front of you.
Okay.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. There you go.
Cynthia and I would like to thank everybody for coming to our last Camp Xanue weekend event on this property before we host the next one on our new property in September. We have at this event people from the state of Washington, the state of Oregon, the state of California, the state of Arizona, the state of Massachusetts. And then we have people who have been from the Philippines and Germany. And Mary, where are you from?
I'm from Scotland.
From Scotland, okay. So, and England? Who?
No, Amanda's been here.
Amanda, well, she's not here today, but yeah, we've had England as well. So, in Canada. So, we have people from all over the U.S. and all over the world, and it's just great to have you guys here. And we have one more night tonight, so hopefully, the fun stuff will continue, the experiences will continue. And I can't wait to get to our next property because they're going to step it up to the next level.
Wow.
Yeah, so thanks for being here, and let's have a fun night tonight.
Can I say something?
Yes?
I want to thank you because, oh my God, because the first time I was here, like I said, I had a lot of anger. When I let it go, my heart was so filled with love and joy, and I just had so much love for everyone. I just want to hug everybody, and I'm just a hugger, and every time I see someone, I just want to hug them. But sometimes I feel, that I'm being too much, and I don't. I want to thank
Never too much.
And I want to thank my grandson because he's the one that encouraged me to come. And I'm sorry I didn't believe you.
There we go. Awesome.
Let me